Welcome into Basketball by Association. My name is Arky Shea. That is Joel C. Cordes. Joel, I ain't got much time to waste for you today, so you go ahead and tell me who this show is named after, and we can get started because there is some stuff that's hot.
There's some hot stuff. Yeah, this guy was hot stuff during his career, but it was cut short by injury. We'll never know just how good he could have been, but man, he was pretty good while he's there. He's a Hall of Famer already, a 7-time All-Star, 3-time NBA champ, 2-time All-NBA. He was the 82-83 was on the 82-83 All-Rookie team. He was the 87-88 Finals MVP, and he is a member of the NBA 75th anniversary. Came into the league again 82-83, but was out of the league by 93-94, cut short due to injuries, and a dynasty felt it because of that shortening of the career.
I kind of think I have a guess. I don't think it's right. So who is it?
Well, take your guess.
No, just tell me who it is. Come on.
Right.
I feel dumb.
That's no fun at all. But 143 career playoff games, joining the likes of Kevin Garnett and Celtics teammate Kendrick Perkins. It's the guy from the other franchise, not the Celtics, but the Lakers. This is the James Worthy.
Yeah, that wasn't going to be it. My bad. I was definitely going to get that wrong. I don't know why. I don't think the years matched up, and it's just because I was so racing, probably just to get to this episode starting. I didn't have a chance to fully flesh this out. For some reason, like John Sally's name kept coming into my head, and that's that I didn't feel right.
Well, we would have eliminated Sally had we gone with a few more clues. This is a guy 7 straight All-Star team. Sally never made a lot of those accolades, and Worthy 20 points per game or more in his career. Was it 5 times here? Yeah, and then 19 points a handful of other times. Dude could score. He could do a lot of different things. Great defender, too.
Ah, man, that's a great segue into our first topic, which is all about Joel C. Cordes, a guy who could score. What's up with Jimmy Butler, huh?
Oh,
and the Miami Heat dispatch of the reigning number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, someone we both thought was going to be in the NBA Finals and the team to beat, punched him out in 5 games. That's right, little old Miami Heat. Did it? Joel had him a couple weeks ago, not even making the play-in for the 8th seed. So,
I have thoughts. I have so many thoughts.
Okay, I'll just say this. Explainable Miami winning a game because of Giannis being out. That is explainable.
Yes.
The rest is not, especially the way the last 2 games ended. So
stealing a game 1 in Milwaukee when the Bucks are, rested rusty and the Heat are coming off of an inspiring win over the Bulls, I think also explainable.
We've seen that happen before to them.
You can explain 2 wins in this series. But my goodness, I have no idea what is up or down anymore, what is right or wrong. My entire worldview has been shattered. There is so much hyperbole right now swirling around both for Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat and against the Milwaukee Bucks. And this is one of the rare cases, Arky Shea, where not only is the hyperbole warranted on all accounts, but it may even be short-arming the amount of hyperbole needed for what has just happened.
Yeah.
The Bucks, I still believe the Bucks are the best team in the tournament. They're not in the tournament anymore, and I still believe that they are the most complete, talented team of the group. And Miami, to steal 2 games, great, but this is a team that barely made the play-in, barely got out of the play-in. Yes, the Bucks lose Giannis, but it shouldn't have mattered because the Heat also lost Tyler Hero and then Victor Oladipo.
Yeah.
The Bucks had a big advantage going into this one. So, yes, losing Giannis, had the Heat stayed full strength, it would have put it on a more even playing field. I still would have given the advantage to the Bucks, as we saw in that monster Game 2. I mean, just railroading the Heat out of Milwaukee with threes. And they did it without Giannis. And we all went, okay, here come the Bucks. This is what the champs look like. Nice try, Miami. Maybe you'll get one at home, but this is it. But Miami, like I said, they lose Hero, they lose Oladipo too. They're a team that can't score, and they lose two of their top scorers. And Jimmy Butler, I did say last week, he is one of the few guys in the NBA, along with Kawhi Leonard, and I would put Kevin Durant in this spot too, although Durant does it in a slightly different way. We had a bigger conversation about this a couple months ago. Guys that just in a Jordan-esque or a Kobe way at certain times can just get to their spots, and there's nothing you or any defensive scheme or triple team is going to do about it. And we've seen this from Jimmy Butler at times for a game. We've seen it for big playoff matchups. We've seen him have good series. Arky, Shea, this was, I don't even know if I can say an entire series of it, but it was darn near close. This is a career-defining series for Jimmy Butler in the same way that Dikembe Mutombo's career is indelibly marked with that moment of him holding the basketball after his 8-seeded Denver Nuggets upset the Seattle Supersonics first time ever. And that was the mark for Mutombo's career. It defined everything else. Butler's comes much later, and he's had plenty of other career moments. But this series and these performances, they were Kobe-esque. They were Jordan-esque.
Yeah.
They are what they are, and they defy all logic. You look at the stats for the team stats, whatever, this defies all logic.
I can't put into words accurately what Jimmy Butler did. I think it was it after the 56 game, Charles Barkley called that game like the one or two second best or best playoff appearance or playoff performance he's seen on TV. It's, and he sort of compared it to that LeBron performance back a handful of years ago, or more than that. It's probably like a decade ago.
And Barkley can get hyperbolic, right? He can be way off on his takes, but he rarely is too much a prisoner in the moment.
Yeah.
And for a guy who's seen so many playoff performances, including Ben in quite a few of them, to say that, it says something, right?
It is spectacular what he did. Jimmy Butler, that is. If you had told me that Jimmy Butler at this age, with this many miles on him, was going to be able to carry this team, even with Giannis missing a significant amount of time, but he didn't miss 4 of the 5 games, right? Like, he still played a good chunk in game 1, and he played 4 and 5. Listen, he's the
Miami still sucked most of the year with Jimmy Butler, and Milwaukee still was fine during the times they were without Giannis.
Well, that's why I asked you about last week about the one guy. I still can't remember who said it, but now that I'm thinking about it again, if Jimmy Butler was like the playoffs are here, there's just a different gear that's in me, and that's what he plays for. The regular season he plays well. He's a great player, but I don't. This is to me one of the most incomprehensible series that I think I've ever seen. Joel,
I agree, and this is why you watch, right?
Now, some people. I'm not the first to say it, but I will say it. This is the greatest upset, 8-1 in the NBA, and we only had a few of them, right? But this is the best one. It's better than Dallas losing to Golden State.
We believe. No, that's close. That's the one everybody has said has to be close, and I would say that's really awfully close. Because that team with the Warriors was not anything special during the year. They showed some flashes. They were not special. The Mavericks were rolling,
and the Mavericks got a 65-win team. Yeah, they were a good team that year.
They got into that situation, and the Warriors found magic. But that was 6 games. And people have pointed out that the Nuggets defeating the Sonics was in the 5-game format. They went all 5 games. It was pretty crazy. That's true. But and then the other one, the Sixers upsetting the Bulls, has a huge asterisk because Derrick Rose blows his knee out. That's the
you can't really count that. Like, I mean,
no.
You can, but you can't really.
What
Right?
what I cannot get past here is that Miami didn't drag the series out, and we get into a pivotal game 7, and something crazy happens. You know, Jimmy Butler is Jimmy Butler and does Jimmy Butler things, and they get out in a game 7. They did it in 5 games.
Wait, what do you make of the fact that Milwaukee choked away these last 2 games? It's inarguable in game 4 that's a 14-point lead going into the fourth quarter, 14 or 15-point lead. They blow that. They had like a 6-point lead with like 2.5 minutes to go last night.
And they were up double digits going into the fourth.
And they were up double digits again going into the fourth. And then Jimmy Butler does like an and one and hits a 3 on back-to-back possessions to get that thing even convinced that we might be able to go to
Jimmy Butler, the guy who doesn't shoot threes, by the way. Like DeMar DeRozan during the regular season, Jimmy Butler does not shoot threes. He did that throughout the series where suddenly he was taking 10 of them a game and knocking them down. He was 3 of 10 last night, but knocking them down at enough of a clip. I just want to throw in there 20, 10, and 10 from Bam Adebayo. It takes a team to be able to do this, and the Heat walking wounded, guys stepping up into roles. They played good defense. It's a Jimmy Butler story, but in order to get there, like
I know this is team aspect, but like this is a Jimmy Butler story.
Yeah, no, I agree.
This is completely like, okay, so.
But to put him into position to be able to hit those shots, you needed other guys stepping up. Gabe Vincent did it. Max Strus did it. Duncan Robinson had a big game 4. You know, they're putting guys out there like Cody Zeller, who, no disrespect to Cody, don't belong in the NBA anymore. Their time is done.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But then again,
so back to the Bucks.
It's the least comprehensible series I think ever. And okay, so let me ask you 2 things about this. Then we can move on to the other series. Last night after the game, Giannis Antetokounmpo was asked whether he thought the season was a failure, and he said, he asked basically the reporter back, "Look, Michael Jordan played 15 seasons, won 6 championships. Were the 9 other seasons a failure?" Right. And the reporter said no. It's like, okay, so everything's sort of a step 2. Right. Okay. Now that's a great answer from the player, right? It's a complete great answer. Is this season a failure to be out in the first round?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
No one wants to say it, but it is.
Yes.
It completely is, to be this dominant for this long of a stretch, especially the last few months of the season, and to come in and get run on your court to lose in 5 games. It's a complete failure.
It's a catastrophe. Yeah. It's so bad. And it's so bad that you would consider, because this isn't the first time that he's had issues in the first round. You would consider firing Mike Budenholzer as coach of the Milwaukee Bucks, despite the championship, despite the number 1 seed, despite all the good things. I'm not saying you would, but you sit down with your brain trust and you consider it, because it's inexcusable. And again, back to the Jimmy Butler thing, but back to the Bucks too. Butler did this against an all-NBA defender in Drew Holiday, but he was picked up at some point in the series by every single possible Bucks defender that could have been put on him, Giannis included, MVP Giannis, and he still did this. The Bucks rotated everybody they had and couldn't stop him. Maybe one-on-one is an issue. Maybe the scheme was an issue, that the Bucks could not hold on to leads again, that they don't call a timeout with 0.5 seconds. There are all sorts of failures in here. You know, Grayson Allen holding on to the ball at the end of the game and not getting a shot off, but Hot Potato finding Grayson Allen in the first place instead of Chris Middleton taking the shot that he's supposed to. Budenholzer got out-coached by Eric Spoelstra, who we all know is a top 2, maybe even top 1 X's and O's guys in the league at this point. Like, he just is, and it's been that way for a while. But man, this is on everybody. This is on Giannis for not dominating enough during the times that he was in playing. The other guys for not taking care of business. It's on the entire team for not taking care of business in game 1 and giving a Heat team any sort of life coming out of the play-in when they didn't deserve it, honestly. It's It is an absolute failure. I understand where Giannis is coming from. That's true. You will be able to zoom out on the career, and this will be a footnote. But right now, the season itself, as big of a failure as you can find, the only saving grace here for me, the Bucks only won 58 games. It was a down year in the East. It was a weird year in the East. There's been no dominant teams whatsoever, as has been pointed out, in either conference. So maybe the amount of parity here is a little bit bigger than, a little more even than we think, but it's still zero excuse.
Yeah, I agree. It's a complete disaster, the way that the series went. And at least if Giannis had not come back to be able to play, at least you could have thrown that back in, because that was a big thing when Middleton was hurt. You're like, well, listen, this team's you got to have a second guy, right? Besides Giannis, if you had your number one out and your MVP guy out, but no, that was the case, because the game 2 right after they smoked him. They smoked him. So. Here's what makes sense in the NBA. Nothing makes sense in the NBA, including the Miami Heat's next opponents in the Eastern semis, your and my New York Knicks, who have moved on thanks to a 4-1 series dub, closing out Cleveland at home, or on the road, I guess, at Cleveland's home, more specifically. Joel, when we spoke last week, we asked how many series we thought would be done by the time we spoke. We did not predict this one would be over.
This was the 7-game series. This was the one. Maybe the Kings Warriors, but this was the one we all thought would go 7 games.
I'm okay with this being a shorter series based on the results. Now knowing your opponent also has the same amount of time off. But Joel, these Knicks, I think, are a little bit better than what even people thought they would be as the 5 seed. We got a 5-8 matchup happening, going on in the semis, which we all predicted.
In the league that you pointed out last week, in the league that by and large, almost every time, the ones that you predict, the ones that are kind of the ones that wind up there. Not happening this year, though. I will point out, I'm guessing the league has no problem with the fact that of all these upsets, somehow, magically, the big market teams are defeating the small market teams in the year where parity was supposed to open the door wide open for the small market teams to have a shot. But what are we winding up with? Oh, great. A Knicks-Miami Heat matchup. 2 massive markets. The Lakers, who were dead in the water, are back in the business. The Warriors, who were dead in the water, back in the business. We don't, I'm not a conspiracy believer, but this would be one of those times where I'm sure there are some conspiracy theorists out there going, look, the big market teams, even when they're down, we got Boston back, we got Philly. It's literally like the top 10 TV markets are the ones still alive, despite being the lower seeds this year. It's disgusting.
Well, let's focus on
congratulations, Knicks.
The number 1 TV market. Joe, give me your impression on how this series went. We thought it was going to be this 7-game series, going to be a wonderful one. But the Knicks just, it seems simple to say, they were better. Like, they played better this entire series, and I did not expect it to be this convincing of a series win for the Knicks. Happy for it, blessed for it. But what were your thoughts on this?
They were so evenly matched in so many ways. 2 tough defensive teams right at the top, 2 of the top rebounding teams with monster front lines in a league that's starting to go big again, but these were 2 of the teams that have been big kind of on the front end of this. Cleveland won 4 more games, which is not an insignificant amount in a parity year and between a 4-5 matchup. But the Knicks had been just as good down the stretch to get into the playoffs. And so you thought strength for strength was going to be a low-scoring, punch-it-out series, and it was. But the Knicks were better in one significant way, in a series where nobody shot the ball particularly well. The defense was legit. The Knicks controlled the boards. They dominated. They dominated the glass against a Cavaliers team that was supposed to be their calling card. And I basically did a spit take even looking at the box score from last night. 48 rebounds to 30 for the New York Knicks over Cleveland on the road in Cleveland. Like, I got to be real honest with you. The MVP of this series, Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson is the MVP of this series for the way that he controlled the paint. He negated Jarrett Allen, but he also helped negate Evan Mobley. And the amount of offensive rebounding and second chance points that this tough, strong Knicks team got, even on the nights, which was most of them that they didn't shoot the ball particularly well. Julius Randle has been hobbled. They got 16 minutes out of him in game 5 and they still win.
Yeah.
They were still up by 20 on the road at various points. Like, you got to take your hat off to the whole Knicks team, even Tom Thibodeau, everybody. Like, this was a great team win, but it's a Mitchell Robinson MVP trophy from this series.
Yeah, the last 2 games, the Knicks out rebounded the Cavs by 32. 32. And that's not the game where the Knicks won by 20. By the way, that doesn't include that 99-79 barn burner that we watched. We told you last week, if you're looking for the 138 to 135s, don't come here.
Sneaky story out of this, not to take the shine off the Knicks for a minute, but Donovan Mitchell's playoff struggles continue because he had a hard time getting out of the first round with the Utah Jazz, despite some very good regular seasons. And it happens again now in Cleveland, though less spotlight on him. 28 points. He did disappear during some portions of that series. But you saw a Knicks team that Mitchell Robinson was doing his job and they were gang rebounding, and a Cavaliers team that they got beat on the margins, but they got pummeled on the margins is what happened.
Yeah, and like you sort of alluded to when you, I guess, sort of mentioned that he was hobbled. This wasn't a series where the poor man's MVP Julius Randle dominated the series.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't an effort where Jalen Brunson, for the most part, I thought when he was on the floor, was the best player on the floor anytime he was on the floor, which is not something the Knicks have, I think, been able to say for a while, that they've had the best player or the one that was performing the best on the floor at any given time. Jalen Brunson had a tremendous series. The support staff for the Knicks, the supporting team, wonderful, wonderfully productive.
Everybody in the rotation did their job.
This is it. Look, we know Tom Thibodeau doesn't run deep when he comes to this rotation. A little deeper because he's got sort of a couple more guys that he can sort of trust. I'm thoroughly impressed with this Knicks team after the first series. And now that series 2 is going to be against the vaunted Miami Heat, it's an exciting old school series for me. Yeah. But it's also one where I could definitely easily see the Knicks winning that series.
So can I. I'm going to keep disrespecting Jimmy Butler. Like, I have to. Yeah. I have to. Logic dictates it. Like, this is the Knicks series to win.
I feel like you could feel free to disagree or correct me if you think I'm completely wrong. I think the way the Knicks have been able to establish, for the most part, except for game 2, to establish the momentum of the game and the pace of the game, and then to be able to get essentially what they wanted, especially these last 2 games where they were just destroying Cleveland on the rebound. I think series 2, the semifinals, matches up better for the Knicks than what Cleveland did. Now, there is the old, Jimmy Butler is playing out of his mind, so I will definitely have some sort of recently Trae Young scary vibes in the back of my head, because
Josh Hart, RJ Barrett, Quentin Grimes are going to get a workout, man. Grimes got to come back soon.
But this whole season for them, and sort of a typical thing for them as well, as far as in their DNA, which is they're used to that. Their style is beat you up a little bit, play strong defense, and make it really difficult for you to be able to do what you need to do. I think in this series in particular, had it been maybe just about anybody else they could have won in the East. I don't know if the series is. I don't feel nearly as good about the series probably, but this Miami, I like it. I like the Knicks' chances a lot in the series.
I do too. And if you're the Celtics and the Sixers, you are just thinking your lucky stars, not disrespecting the Knicks, because hey, whether it's the Knicks or if Miami somehow gets there, it'll be a tough Eastern Conference, but the road got significantly easier with the Milwaukee Bucks out of the way, and with not having to deal with a Cleveland team at all, your focus now really becomes on that Sixers-Celtics matchup, because That's going to be the favorite. I'm not saying they're going to win because we don't know anything about anything anymore, but that becomes the favorite in the Eastern Conference by a pretty significantly large margin.
Probably, even though the Knicks did have their way for the most part with Boston this
Mm-hmm.
season,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think they're probably happier that it's New York as opposed to Milwaukee moving on. And I think definitely same thing for Philadelphia for sure. We'll get to those fillers in just a moment, but let's mention that your Los Angeles Lakers weren't able to close out last night. They go to Memphis. They lose. They lose pretty convincingly. Is this just a stall tactic? Are they just want to get that back to LA, Jolt? No, I'm kidding. Do you think Memphis has what it takes to be able to get these next two games to bring it back in the series? Can they even it in Los Angeles? Or as we've seen, and you've also mentioned on this podcast before, the Lakers are well equipped to win this series. Do they close it out in a 6?
I think they do close it out in 6. It's really an odd setup with the way that they stagger the home and home games in the 5, 6, 7. That if you somehow go up 3-1 and you are the underdog, you actually have the advantage in a game 6 going back home. Something that, like, we saw teams take care of business in 5 games. Miami did it on Milwaukee's floor, and so on. But LA kind of has an advantage here. They're not only just being up 3-2, but because they jumped out early, despite being the lower seed, they essentially get home court advantage to do the closeout. And I think that does mean something. Although Ja Morant, very difficult to contain, got to his spots. The Grizzlies are going to need Desmond Bane to be scoring 25 plus points a game. Jaren Jackson has got to be close there too. They just don't have the weapons. Otherwise, the Lakers, big, tough front line that controls the interior. A lot of people have been talking about the number of blocks the Lakers have had in this series. It's Anthony Davis. It's LeBron James, of course. But Jared Vanderbilt is a guy that typically averages like 2 blocks a game himself, along with a couple of steals when he gets the minutes. So Los Angeles really able to control the rim, but you've got a guy, Ja Morant, who lives at the rim and challenges all shot blockers. So it's a strength on strength matchup here, but you look at the Lakers and oddly enough, it feels like they've got more weapons, doesn't it? It feels like they have more shot makers despite being the 7th ranked team. They've got more shot makers right now than the Memphis Grizzlies do, partially because Bane has been hit or miss. Dylan Brooks really struggling from outside.
Yeah.
Luke Kennard, not hitting in high volume. Ja Morant shoots threes a little bit, as does Jaren Jackson, but it's not, a huge thing for either of them. You do have to wonder, like, all right, if Memphis has their front line fully intact with Steven Adams and Brandon Clark, a guy who can get you some points, do they wear down this Lakers front line in a different way and it becomes just a different facet of the series? Different guys have to step up than what's happening now, because the Lakers, by and large, are able to really attack the basket. Xavier Tillman does a great job, especially as a backup center. He's always been ready when he's been plugged in, and he's doing his job, but he's not a rim protector. And Jaren Jackson can, the best shot blocker in the game, can only cover so much ground when you've got Anthony Davis or LeBron James attacking, plus a bunch of these other guys like Jared Vanderbilt, like Malik Beasley, D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves, especially, like Dennis Schroeder. They've got weapons right now, and it feels like more than what the Grizzlies have, and it's so weird to say that. So I don't want the Lakers to win this. I do kind of like this Lakers team, and it's the first time I can say that. I do kind of like them in the same way I kind of like the Knicks. They've got my respect, but after what the Grizzlies have been building and after what the Lakers did with highway robbery at the trade deadline, I don't want to see the Lakers gift wrap some magical trip to the semifinals again, because that scares me, because then I have to worry about, are they going to get to the Western Conference Finals and the NBA Finals? Like, I don't want to see that again. I'm done with the Lakers. I'm done with LeBron.
Forever?
This is supposed to be the Grizzlies. Yeah. Like,
okay. All right.
Forever, a long time ago. I was done with the Lakers during the Shaq and Kobe years. They get so many gift wrap things handed to them. I'm sick of the ultra rich just getting richer. Like the Lakers are those guys, and I hate them for it. But I gotta respect the hustle with this year's team. I have to.
Listen. If this turns out this is what Rob Pelinka was able to do,
There should be a criminal investigation
to get this team anywhere near this position. Because listen, you're right. Maybe Adam Silver should be opening up a dossier on that one particular trade to be able to get. Because it makes no sense.
You
right?
get Russ,
it made
you
no
get
sense
three
at the time.
started. You get rid of Russ, and you get 3 starting caliber guys who are all young and fit. Come on.
Yeah, it made no sense at the time. But no sense at the time. We talked about it at the time. Made complete no sense how that.
It's Rui Hachimura who's killing it for them off the bench.
That's
killing
the dude. I know he's probably wouldn't win your quote MVP of the series, but he'd be a close second if you're asking me. He has been a stud for them. So I agree with you. I think Memphis is just disjointed. Like I don't think this is sometimes we saw this with Atlanta, right? We thought Atlanta was going to be they were rising up, they were right there, but you got to get your bumps as a young team. We thought they were ready to do it the next year, just a disaster. All right, we sort of see that sometimes the iron isn't always just going to stay hot with you, right?
It's not linear. It's not linear necessarily.
Maybe Memphis this is a speed bump this season. Like all the off court stuff they've had to deal with, the injury with Steven Adams. Maybe this just isn't for them in 2023, and that's fine. It happens. Giannis just dealt with it as the number 1 seed, and he and that team was legit there in the top 2 or 3 the entire year, and then the last half of the year they were the number 1 team. So I think Memphis is disjointed. I think Los Angeles.
They're wounded.
I think Los Angeles is. I'm with you, hating saying this. I think it's the 7th seed. They're the better overall team. I think they're better positioned right now than Memphis is to be able to do anything. And you sort of saw like when they were down at the end of that game, like they panned over to the sideline and would be interesting if Kobe was there. Very interesting. For some reason, he made it to Memphis after, what had happened. But let's say you look over the sideline and you see LeBron's out and AD is out, and they sort of show a shot of both of them. Neither one of them looked worried. Neither one of them looked frustrated that they sort of lost that game. They sort of looked like, yeah, we're coming home, and we'll take care of it there. Like they looked supremely confident, even though they probably would have liked to have been able to win Game 5. That Game 6 is right in their court, and they're playing with house money at this point, and they're going to be good to go. So yeah, I'm with you. I think I like them to close it out in LA on Saturday.
I think so. We've yet to see a game
tomorrow night,
where LeBron and AD have huge games at once, and that seems to be brewing out there. Davis had a really nice Game 5 here. LeBron, of course, Game 4, 20 and 20 was pretty masterful, although he was helped a lot by the supporting cast. LeBron looked like he had dead legs in Game 5. He 1 for 9 from downtown, 5 of 17. They pulled him early, just 15 and 10. Other guys continue to play hard.
Do you think they're wheeling him around since he's only got like a day and a half in between games and they got to travel back to LA?
I think it was the smart move, and they probably could have pulled him earlier.
Probably.
They want to close the Grizzlies out, but they were down by 20 and multiple times. And I think you do, especially if he's not playing effectively, I think you do pull him and rest him a little bit, maybe even more than they did. If he was having a big game, you let him roll and you try to close this thing out, but he wasn't. And we are kind of due for one of these teams has LeBron and the other one doesn't. We're kind of due for that again.
He may have the dead legs, but was it the game before where he's like getting insulted on the court and he just goes coast to coast and slams dunks it right in someone's face? And you're just like, okay, that's fine. So there's still some LeBron left. Still in the tank when it's necessary. As predicted, the Golden State Warriors have won 3 in a row against the Sacramento Kings to go up 3-2 in the series.
Let it be known, as wrong as I was about the Knicks and as wrong as I was about the Bucks and as wrong as I've been about the Grizzlies, Arky, Shea, you said the Kings were last time we talked that it was in the bag and the Kings were moving on. The dynasty was dead.
I'll tell you this. We've seen some close basketball. They're both playing pretty well against each other. So I don't think the Kings are dead by any stretch. But we had to see someone, I guess, win on someone else's court, and we didn't see that until last night. Um, Golden State is just impossible to beat on their home court. Sacramento plays really well at their home court, but they're really great on the road. They were unable to win on the road before. Home court it's held served until last night, and now it's 3-2 Golden State. Joel, I will be honest with you. I don't feel nearly as confident with my Sacramento pick, especially since now Game 6 goes back to the Warrior Dome. So, are we done with the Kings? Are they done? Are the Kings DUNE tomorrow night?
They might be. They very well might be, because now you are in a situation where instead of playing free and easy and jumping out to the 2-0 lead, yeah, you figured the Warriors were going to win at least one at home. Not as big of a deal. But that Game 4 loss where De'Aaron Fox hurts his hand, the Warriors make a statement, they get a really big win. That was series shifting in so many ways because it evens things out. And you have the champs on the ropes. You were running them. You were speeding them up. That has changed over these last 3 games. When you watch these last 3, the Warriors are no longer sped up out of their comfort zone. They look back to doing what they want to do when they want to do it. And yeah, sure, they have trouble stopping the Kings from scoring. The Kings are a really good offensive team with some great firepower, even though guys like Kevin Huerter have been MIA in the series. And Keegan Murray just finally showed up. The Kings were still playing that well, even with those 2 guys really kind of struggling a bit. So yeah, Sacramento's getting their points, but they're no longer getting stops on the Warriors. They're no longer fast breaking them every single time. It's the Warriors instead who are finding guys down court. The Warriors seem to be getting more of those offensive rebounds and putbacks, something that like really stood out with the Knicks and the Heat as bellwethers in their series, where they were just quicker to the ball, quicker to the offensive rebounds, manufacturing extra looks. Even something as simple as the fact that in Game 5, the Warriors get 96 shots and the Kings get 90. That's a big deal when it's the Warriors. And those 6 extra shots can be 3-pointers from Steph Curry or somebody else. You know, let's give hats off, as much as we don't want to. Let's give hats off to Draymond Green, that since coming back and coming off the bench in these last 2 games has been enormously impactful. 21 points, 7 assists, 4 boards, 4 steals, and a block. He was 8 of 10 from the floor in 32 minutes in Game 5. Less box score impactful in Game 4, but eyeball test and continuity-wise was just as impactful in that 4th game as well. You know, and other guys, Kevon Looney, 22 boards. Like, the Kings have had zero answer for Looney keeping things alive in the same way that Mitchell Robinson did for the Knicks. And it's scary because the Warriors have even more firepower and shoot at a better clip than the Knicks do. So, yeah, I'm worried about the Kings. It's kind of what I said. Like, this is a young team. They've got some experience, but not enough. And now you get into a closeout situation on the road against the defending champs. That lack of experience is very relevant all of a sudden.
It does become a lot more relevant because you're talking about trying to be able to control your emotions and control yourself back on the road in what is going to be the most hostile environments of Friday night. Although a little bit earlier game, that's going to be a 6 o'clock Central tip, so 4 o'clock.
And knowing that you've lost 3 in a row.
Yeah. Maybe that's a 7 o'clock tip, right? I got that right. That's a 7 o'clock tip tomorrow. 7 Central, I should say 8 Eastern, so it's 7, 6. So it's what? 5. So it's a little bit sooner on a Friday night. So maybe it's not as rowdy early in that game. You got to start out really well. De'Aaron Fox, it's at 24 points and 25 shots. That's not the best. Okay, just to say the very least. That team did not look overall very great last night. Domantas Sabonis looked fine for the most part, but what did he end up with rebounds wise? He ended up 10 rebounds, so 21 and 10 is not bad. But Domantas Sabonis has had a stellar series in the first 2 games and leading into Game 3 too. So all the experience, all of it, is Golden State. The age, the ability to sort of see through and get through the coaching woes, right? The better coach
Mhm.
is not Mike Brown, despite being the coach of the year. The better coach is Steve Kerr, right? He's done it all. So, by the way, did you see the clip where it was Steve Kerr saying to Mike Brown, "We changed all our plays, so you don't know anything," right? Or we changed all our plays, and Mike Brown's like, "I haven't coached you guys in years. I don't know anything." So, it kind of looked like it. Like this was a very different looking Golden State team. They played with urgency. They played with intensity. Um, Draymond Green, as you said, has been really good since he's been back. He's been huge for Golden State. I was thinking Sacramento will be able to win one of the two in Golden State, just because
Had to.
Golden State doesn't lose there, but they lost like 9 times, but they won like 32 games there, right? So
And
like,
Sacramento was a good road team all year, you know?
and they were, yeah, right. They were a good road team. If you grab one of those, series is done. You're going to be able to grab one of those two at home probably. Now it's tough. It's tough. I do think Sacramento can bounce back, but man, they are fighting so uphill right now. Not only with the closeout game being on the road, but the fact that all the momentum has gone the other way. They did not look great in Game 5 last night. This is going to be a tough one for them. It's going to be really hard for them to be able to win Game 6 in the form of Game 7. But I do think they're good enough to do it. I just think I think a Keegan Murray is going to have to step up for you in a game like this. I think Sabonis is going to have a monster game. De'Aaron Fox has got to fight through. Man, this playoffs. We've seen it happen a lot. I feel like most recently since we've been doing this podcast, this playoffs has had 1,000 injuries that have been important to one part of the series or the other. And De'Aaron Fox having that hand. Joe, I still want to believe in Sacramento. I want to believe old man time, father time has come for Golden State. And maybe that's the next series. But I think Sacramento might be able to play well tomorrow night. They're going to have to. But I think they've done it. They've done it in a goal. What was the other two scores there in Golden State? I don't know. They're pretty close. All the games have been close, except for game 4 that was a bit of a runaway. So, listen, I'm with you. I deep in my cockles of my heart, this feels like Golden State. But
I will say this, like, I want the Western Conference to have a small market team that gets out and do something different. I know we got Phoenix 2 years ago, but I don't want to see the Lakers again at all costs. I don't, if it's the Warriors, fine, they're the defending champs, but I don't want the Lakers gift wrap this. And at this point, with the Lakers likely moving on, the Warriors are our best chance to take out the Lakers and keep them from getting to the NBA Finals. If the Grizzlies were ahead, I'd be like, all right, yeah, give me Sacramento. I want a Grizzlies Sacramento series. That's going to be fun. It's something different. But I think the Kings would be in maybe even bigger trouble if they run into the Lakers. So for me at this point, yeah, I kind of want the Warriors to do this, and I want the Warriors to put this Lakers revolution to bed here and be over with it, because then I'll take my chances over the next series in Denver and Phoenix and at least hope that we get somebody new in the finals.
Well, before we get to the one series that plays tonight, let's get to a couple that have already wrapped up.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, your Timberwolves were unable to, although they fought valiantly in Game 5, were not able to pull that game to a Game 6. Denver has moved on. Thoughts on the end of this dynasty?
It'll be real quick. The season was a massive disappointment when you consider the Rudy Gobert trade and all that went into it. It was a mistake to do that. It can be salvageable, but in order to salvage it, you have to trade Karl Anthony Towns, which is a different topic for a different time, and we've hit a few other times. But some massive immaturity still out of this group. They probably don't lose in 5 if Jaden McDaniels is healthy. They probably aren't the 8th seed if Jaden McDaniels is healthy, honestly. So a lot of this was self-inflicted. Denver's a really good team. The Wolves' bad habits caught up to them at various points in the series, but the Nuggets were the better team and deserved to win. I'm looking forward to Nuggets and Phoenix Suns. That feels so evenly matched as a 1-4 matchup. I don't know which way to go. I can talk myself into the Nuggets winning it. It feels like the Suns are really, really dangerous right now with the different weapons that they have. Denver, to their credit, has a bunch of different guys in Caldwell Pope, Bruce Brown, Christian Brown, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, Jeff Green. They got a lot of different bodies to throw at those wings of the Suns to make it difficult. But on the other end, Jamal Murray is going to have a series, an entire series against the Suns, like he had in game 5 against the Timberwolves, where Murray looked healthy. He put the team on his back. He was the guy scoring and really opening things up. And then Nikola Jokic was just able to deal wherever he wanted and to be able to score. Phoenix feels like they have more top line weapons than the Nuggets do, though the Nuggets might be the slightly deeper team. So I'm really intrigued by that matchup. But yeah, the Wolves, massive disappointment for them. But we saw this coming over the second half of the season when they couldn't get things together after the trade.
Let me just say this: those final 2 games were actually, I would say, the last 3 games were really hard fought for Minnesota. Now they made some big errors. Like tell me why Cats with 5 fouls is guarding Jokic in the final minutes when you have Rudy Gobert on the floor and on the team. You know, the dude you traded for to be this defensive stopper, right? Like that. So I've heard a commentator call them the team that makes the dumbest mistakes in the NBA. They're just a lot of stuff like that. It's just dumb, just dumb stuff. Why would you do that? So
it's a low blow, but you trade Karl Anthony Towns and you will reduce the amount of dumb mistakes by 50%.
So I was going to ask you this last part to wrap it up. Karl Anthony Towns looked to be, as he was walking out of the tunnel, sort of giving a lot of love to the crowd that was still sort of cheering for him. I wouldn't say he was blowing kisses necessarily goodbye, but he was sort of blowing some love to them. So do you think Karl Anthony Towns is a Timberwolf to begin 2023-24?
I think he will be because they don't have the guts to make the trade. I think they need to make the trade. I don't know if they will actually pull the trigger because Towns has been a good guy and he's been through some really bad years and he is super talented, and Minnesota is not a place that gets, massive free agent signing, potential. So I don't know if they'll do it, but they really should. Like, it's so obvious at this point that the team runs better through Anthony Edwards at all times and to build around that.
Dude.
And that defensively you can build around Gobert and he can be productive enough and you have other weapons, but so many of the mistakes happen from Karl Anthony Towns or because he's on the floor and you're having to cover for him. And yes, he's a phenomenally talented offensive player, but he's still so limited offensively in certain ways. And there's just been a lack of growth. It's a lack of development, both upstairs and in the offensive game. Even certain things like basic post pivot moves have not developed from his rookie season. His body, look at a lot of other centers in the league. Karl Anthony Towns looks kind of doughy compared to everybody else, and he does almost every single year. There are some tea leaves that show that the work ethic might not be there for a guy who is your number one player and who you've been building around. And I think the time has come to say that Towns is what he is until he decides otherwise. We have to quit waiting on that, and we've got to cash out while he's still with some upside left in other people's minds and is a perennial all-star. He's one of the most talented offensive centers in the history of the league, but it's time to cash out and it's time to get somebody or a couple of people that align with Anthony Edwards and go that direction, because that's the guy you want to hitch your wagon to.
And Anthony Edwards, Anthony Edwards is great. He's ready to be the guy that you build around. But Karl Anthony Towns, and then we can move on. Karl Anthony Towns doesn't need to be your team's number one, but could be, as you mentioned, if you don't have to focus the franchise around him, there's going to be people that will give up a good bit for him, because where else are you going to find a center that wins 3-point contests, right? Like, not who knows, Victor Wembanyama, maybe that guy coming up, but like, he is extraordinarily offensively talented to be able to make buckets. It's the being able to be that guy, that dude, to have that dog in him, as the kids like to say on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
To have that into you consistently, I think you're right. Just we thought he burst through last year, and like this was going to be the time. Maybe he just regressed back to what he is, which is great. He's a very good player. He's not someone you just dump just for nothing. It's just
I think ideally he needs to be your third best player, maybe
third?
even fourth best player.
Okay.
I'm
All right.
really down on his ability
You
to
are.
make
You are
winning
very.
basketball plays,
You are
um,
very, very
and to
angry.
do the little things.
You're
So
hurt. I hear it. I hear the hurt in your voice. I hear it. Let's talk about the Suns beating the Clippers in 5 games. I don't think there's a ton of meat on that bone because the Clippers, well, it's hard to, even though they put up a hell of a fight, but it's hard to win a series when your two best guys don't play. So Joel Phoenix, we thought was this team that once they got Kevin Durant was going to be a skyrocket, a chance to be able to compete for the NBA championship. This series has not proved anything otherwise, but I will tell you this, regardless of the injuries to Paul George and to Kawhi Leonard, Devin Booker's out there trying to make some money. Devin Booker's out there having a great series. Kevin Durant's playing really well. They had to fight for it, did Phoenix, but they get through 5. They get a little bit extra time to sort of nurse some wounds, but most importantly, they're done. They're done, and I don't know what this says about the Clippers, except for you got especially one guy with injuries that you don't always know when he's going to be there to be available for you.
And I don't think Kawhi is faking a meniscus tear or took himself out for psychological reasons or what have you. But the reality is that the experiment between Paul George and Kawhi Leonard has failed. It's over. You need to rethink it. They might not be able to because of the injuries now. They may not be able to shuffle the deck in a way that's meaningful. And so they have to just stick with this and see where it goes. But I think the belief has to have set in by this point that no amount of load management, no amount of kid gloves, and all of this stuff is going to get Kawhi Leonard back to being an everyday player. He's phenomenal when he does play, but he's at a point in his career where I don't ever think we're going to see the everyday Kawhi Leonard for 82 games ever again. He's in decline. Paul George seems to kind of be in the same boat a little bit, and George is not Kawhi Leonard. George is a guy who works phenomenally well as a number 2 on your team. He's okay if he's a number 1, but you better have a really great supporting cast around him. The Clippers are very veteran. They're old. They're a well-built team if you have a healthy Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, but because you don't, this is kind of a scary time for the Clippers where we could see this blown up at any moment. We could also see this team fall off a cliff in one of these coming seasons where they're suddenly just too old, too banged up, and it is over and a hard reset is needed. And that's the risk they took in trying to build this. I get why they did it. It made sense on paper. It pains me because Kawhi Leonard is one of my top favorite players ever. I love peak Kawhi, but I've seen this story before with plenty of other oft-injured guys. He is going into a stage of his career where he's going to transition from a superstar to a superstar role player at some point, kind of in the same way that his career began in San Antonio. And that's if his body lets him get that far, because he is not able to stay healthy.
Yeah, he played 52 games this year out of the 82. Played 52 the year before the injury, but that's that's the COVID year. Call it what you will at that point. But Joe, can I just posit this one thing and then we move on? I agree with you that I think Kawhi Leonard is sort of going to hit a decline and hit it hard. But when he's playing, he's still really darn effective and really, really darn good.
Yeah.
How much can he take? I know that's sort of a hard question to ask, so it's probably a little unfair to ask it, but how many years dealing with this, right? These type of injuries, not small ones.
Mm-hmm.
How many can you deal with before we do finally get to that wall?
I think one more team is going to take a dice roll on him being a superstar. One more team is going to convince themselves that with their trainers and with enough time passed, they'll be the ones to do it. That one team might be the Clippers next year, running it back out of necessity or optimism, whatever it is. They may do that. But let me put it this way. If I'm the Clippers and anyone gives me a call for Kawhi Leonard or Paul George and is offering near equal value, take the money and run. Take the money and let someone else figure it out whether those guys will ever stay healthy again and where they're at in their career. If you can get close to equal value, do it. Do not wait any longer, because the odds that either, especially both of them, figure this out and this has a happy ending for the Clippers is incredibly small. Like, I don't think those calls are going to come. I don't think other teams are going to talk themselves into that. So it may be the Clippers getting 75 cents on the dollar, or like I said, riding this out. But we get, I think, one more year. There's going to be one more season of trying to see if you can make this work. But a meniscus tear, sometimes those heal really quickly and sometimes those take a long time. Like, is Kawhi Leonard even available for training camp next year? Is he available for the start of the season, or are we right back into, well, we're going to rest him until game 30, and then we're going to bring him back where he plays once a week for 20 games, and then, like, they're held hostage. They're held hostage.
He has one more year that then at the end of next year will be a player option if he wants for 24 and 25, which...
That's another reason he's going to take the money. If he's hurt, he's going to take the money. That's another reason if you're the Clippers, cash out now.
He would be due $45 million next year, 48 if he decides to take the player option. Who knows? Like, if you don't think you're going to get that kind of money, why wouldn't you opt back in?
I mean, I'll tell you what, just to like bring it full circle. If I'm the Minnesota Timberwolves, I'm calling the Clippers and I'm offering Karl Anthony Towns straight up for Paul George or Kawhi Leonard. And if I'm the Clippers, I really strongly think about that, to get a young guy who, has an injury history himself, but I get out from under the looming contract situation and I let somebody like Minnesota roll the dice that they're going to get equal value. And if I'm Minnesota, I feel okay about that, because Towns' value is going to decline hard if the Wolves struggle again next year. It's going to go way, way down. Cash out now while you can still talk other people into taking them.
Okay, two more things we need to get to real quick. The only sweep that we saw was the 76ers over the Nets. God bless the 76ers, but that was, I think, more of an indictment on the Nets. I think that was just a bad matchup for the Nets from moment one, and
Terrible
Philadelphia
matchup.
Took advantage of it, and now they're done. So they'll be waiting on the winner of the series that could conclude tonight. Boston heads back to Atlanta for a series we thought might have already been over. Atlanta still fighting in there. They can even it up at 3-3 tonight. Joel C. Cordes, do we get back to Boston for a Game 7 this weekend?
I think the Bostons take care of business. But if you're the Celtics, do not let Trae Young become Jimmy Butler 2.0. We know Trae Young has the capability to start making ridiculous shots. For the Hawks to come back and win in the fourth quarter in a game that they did not have DeJounte Murray is, it's a testament to them. Good job, Atlanta, to continue fighting. You haven't rolled over in this series the way that you did last year against Miami. You fought in the play-in tournament against Miami to be able to advance. You're showing some good gumption here, some good guts, but it's an indictment on the Boston Celtics. Like, it's an indictment to not close that out. You need to lock people down. You need to win those 50-50 balls. You need to not allow it to be a close game. Boston, you have to build a big lead on the road, take the crowd out of it. Give Trae Young 60 points if he wants, but nobody else better be beating you, in these margin plays. Nobody else better be hurting you, and they better be locked down. Celtics have got to take care of business. I think they do, but man, we don't know anything anymore. Don't listen to me.
They're too talented not to be able to finally get this done again. But again, it's one of those Jimmy Butler, Trae Young things. Trae Young did this to my Knicks a couple of years ago. He could just take over a game sometimes.
Yeah.
And when you start messing around too much, you start playing around. Trae Young just throwing up threes from 40 feet out and making them. Shouldn't have made it. Shouldn't have had a shot to. They should have never gotten back to that close in the game. Like that.
Can you imagine the bizarro world if in the year where the only elite teams resided in the Eastern Conference, and all year we said it's the Bucks, it's the Celtics, it's the Sixers, a bizarro world where Atlanta somehow advances and Philadelphia is the only remaining team of that group in the East, and instead you have the Knicks and the Heat and the Hawks, for crying out loud, and you've got the Lakers looming, the left for dead Lakers looming in the Western Conference. Like, just tear everything up. Let's stop doing shows. Let's stop trying to do predictions because nothing matters at that point.
Hey, we could throw all the seeds to the bumblebees, because what we're going to find is a massively watched series if that's the final. If it ends up being like a New York Knicks, Los Angeles Lakers 4-7 matchup,
for sure,
or 5-7 matchup,
or Philly, LA. There's a ton of history there to go between those two teams too.
100%. All right, I just need a minute, maybe two or less on this. This was a big story that happened this week. We need to get to it. Ime Udoka is back coaching in the National Basketball Association of America, the United States. He is coaching the Houston Rockets. Said he wanted to coach the Rockets more than the Raptors, who I was a little surprised fired Nick Nurse, something we did talk about last week. Joel, Ime Udoka's back. Thoughts from you? Thoughts from what this could mean for the Houston Rockets?
We'll find out just how good of a coach Ime Udoka is, because he stepped into a Boston Celtics situation that was tense, but he was taking over from Brad Stevens, and he was taking over a core that had been to the playoffs multiple times and had done some big damage in the playoffs. And when Ime Udoka leaves, Joe Mazzulla able to step in and have very similar results, which kind of puts a little bit of shade on maybe what Udoka accomplished as coach of the year. So we're going to find out. A Houston Rockets team, a lot of talent, has not been able to put it together. They've looked absolutely uncohesive in all the ways over the last couple of seasons under Steven Silas, despite his best efforts there. We'll find out. I'm a little bit concerned. Udoka obviously, was let go by the Celtics because of some character issues. The Houston Rockets as a franchise,
we still don't fully know what it is. Like we have some semi-reporting on it.
Inappropriate relations and communications with a female team staffer.
Well, but we still don't fully know, right? Like there's stories that this has been, even investigated by the police departments up in Boston. But I'm with you. I think this is a huge test for Ime Udoka. Again, not nearly the type of talent, but a lot of young talent. Houston will not be phoning it in, so to speak. They'll have a pretty good draft pick this year, and we'll see what sort of comes of that, especially if they're able to somehow magically get the ping pong ball that goes to let's not even pretend it's Victor Wembanyama. Let's just pretend it's just there's about 6 or 7 guys that I think are really, really good coming out of college this year. So let's just say all that happens. You have a pretty decent core to start building. Houston's going to want to try for Ime Udoka based on his recent success, at least early on. And if you start having some success early, start winning some of these games early, maybe, just maybe, Houston found a nice little call there on the bargain basement steps of the old Dollar General.
Let me, one last thought here. Ime Udoka comes in with character concerns. He's coaching a team that has multiple guys on that roster who have had active or past character concern issues. He's joining a franchise that has had some pretty big character and ethics concerns around their ownership group, and we know that trickles down. So there are some major concerns about this pairing and whether this is going to be a situation where there's not a lot of infrastructure, there's not the right type of, or maybe just kind of a loosey-goosey atmosphere where it allows people to continue bad behavior or bad habits. That's going to be watched over, but probably not by the Rockets organization, which means if something bad happens, it already has escalated beyond their level. He's not the guy that I would have gone for if I was Houston, knowing that these other concerns exist, but this kind of fits into their MO of almost like an Oakland Raiders type of thing.
Yeah.
We're the bad boys. We'll do what we want. And We
I
just
can
want the
see
most
that.
talented guy out there. Everything else be damned.
I could see that. Although the most talented coach they could have gotten is coaching the Knicks right now, so it's going to be a little difficult to get in front if you want to make that hire early. With the recruiting and all.
Mhm.
I don't know, man. This has a chance to work out really well for them, just because of the price they're going to be able to get him at.
Yeah.
Because he would never have been able to go to Houston, right? But if Toronto's interested in him, and that's a decent ownership
Mhm.
group, or they were interested in him,
Mhm.
and Houston was obviously interested, at a different type of ownership group with the Fertittas, you know, this has a decent shot. This has a decent shot of being something more than just, no offense to Coach Silas, but just sort of being a body there while we sort of try to build a couple more pieces. And if something happens to happen, then great. But if not, we'll find out pretty early on that we're going to be tanking going forward. Although that's not allowed in the NBA anymore. I should take that
Right.
back.
It doesn't exist. It's all done.
That's right. All right, Joel, that's going to do it for us in this wonderful episode. This is the James Worthy episode, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Big James.
All right. Goodbye, Joel.